the joy they bring, I think. And sometimes it takes a while to get over, a loss of a pet. It can be just the animal's eyes, something in their eyes that gets to you more than others. You grow very attached to animals almost the day you have them, almost like a birth of a child. You bond so instantly, and even 3 days, 2 days, you're so bonded to this animal that if you had to put them to sleep for some reason, it is just as difficult. If you've had a pet, you would know how much joy they bring and why you would have another one.
Well, when I was about 9 years old, an uncle of mine gave us a purebred boxer named Butch. And as it turned out, the dog took a liking to me, I took a liking to Butch. This was the first real pet I had like a dog, and it followed me everywhere, including across the busy highway we lived on. So we had to keep it tied up while it was outside. The problem was, just after we got it, we didn't have an adequate chain. It didn't have a proper clasp on it. Well, one day I wanted to go across the road to my friend's place to play around with him, and I didn't want to take the dog. So I found a piece of wire and figured I'd fashion a clasp on the chain so I could tie him up and go across the road. Which I did, and I didn't bargain on how strong a boxer is. So he quickly pulled free of the chain just as a car came by. And the car didn't really hit him. All that really happened was that the dog caught his back leg on the tailpipe of the car, and it hit him just strong enough to spin him. But as it turned out, because he was a purebred boxer, he was very high strung, and the dog went into shock. And I started screaming and picked him up and carried him across the road. But the dog, you could tell, was in complete shock, and he died within 10 minutes. And this was a terrible shock to me, and he was only with us a month, and it was my fault that the dog had run across the road. I blame myself. Even now today, I've never really been what I call a dog person, and I always trace it back to that.
So his name was Jeffrey, and he was a fish, a goldfish. And I had him for over a year and a half. He was so pretty. He would actually hide under his little house thing, and then he would only come out when I was changing. Or when other friends of mine would come over and change in the room, he would be out. But the rest of the time he'd be hiding. My dad stopped feeding him because I was away, and he died when I was not there. I'm assuming they just threw him in the garbage. He didn't even get a proper flushing. My mom took the bowl to make a flower pot. I wish he was still here. But it'd be cool if he wasn't a pervert.
Okay, so it's 1999, and it's 8-year-old me. I'm in grade 3. We decided we want a class pet. So my teacher decides he's gonna buy a hamster. It was awesome. And then the year ended, and it became well, who's gonna take care of him for the summer? So I took him home for the summer, and he was kind of an asshole. He was never grateful, never was yeah, let's fucking play. I could hold him, but he wouldn't let me, so I couldn't really, because he was such a dick. He just had a shit personality. All he would ever do is just sit in his cage and wait for food, but you still kind of just get attached to it just by feeding him. And just by knowing okay, I'm the one that's keeping you alive, we have a bond that way. And so that was my summer, had a good time with him, came to enjoy his presence for some reason or another. And then I bring him back to school and get back, everyone's happy, everyone's hi, I'm happy, yeah. And then pizza lunches start happening every Friday. And the other kids in the class decide they're gonna feed Woodchip pizza and French fries and Doritos and all this like bad food. And I'm going to them, I'm like, guys, don't do this. Like, he doesn't like that. He likes like berries and nuts and stuff and seeds. But nobody gives a shit and they don't listen. They keep feeding him greasy food. And then he died. I think I was the only person who was bummed out. Nobody else in the class like really cared because he was just entertainment for them. They just fed him greasy food. I almost left the school. You guys are dicks. You killed my friend. Eventually I got over it because you just get over it. He was a pretty cool guy, Woodchip.
It's kind of a trait of border collies to have like really intense eye contact, which is not something that a lot of dogs will do. And that was one thing that Blaze really did really like well. I honestly, I think she didn't think of herself as a dog. Moving away from my dog was harder than being away from my parents and my friends. I would call home and be like, hey mom, how's Blaze? And they'd be like, she's good. I had gone home for the weekend. So I spent a whole weekend alone with Blaze, and it was awesome. And as I was leaving to go back to school, I stopped at the door and was like, oh, I didn't say goodbye to Blaze. I'll see her next time. 2 days later, my mom called me, and Blaze had died that day. And I just like lost it. It was awful, it was horrible, because it was just there. I had just seen her, and she was fine. I always think about how I didn't go back inside and like give her a hug goodbye, because I always gave her a hug goodbye. It's kind of haunting a little bit. It feels really empty at home without her.
They have this like saying that pets look like their owners. Well, she started acting like me. She was always like going where she wasn't supposed to. She was always like the naughty one. Like, she was really quick. Next thing I know, like we hear this little like noise on the wall, and I'm like, damn it, she got in. So I have a little skinny arm. I had to stick my arm up the wall. So I'm like scraping my arm just to grab it. She just literally sat on my hand, and I just took her out. It was like an elevator ride. She started getting really thin, really thin. And it was really bad because I had to feed it with like a needle for 2 weeks inside, every 30 minutes, feed this dying rat on my hands. So for 2 weeks I was just watching my little friend leave me.
I got Dudley back in 1988. At nighttime he would curl up beside me and purr, and he was quite wonderful, and I thought he was wonderful right from the start. He didn't seem to be really afraid of anything, and he wasn't cocky or anything. He just had a healthy amount of self-esteem or something. Someone suggested I try taking him out for a walk on a harness. Usually you see cats being dragged about, this horrible awkward thing when you see a cat on a harness, but he liked his harness, and we would go out walking around the block. He was the guy before there were kids. He just kept adapting to every new situation, so it was just like we were adding to our little family. I've thought about his death a lot, the circumstances surrounding his death. I mean, there was no lead up to it. He was just being Dudley, as he was always Dudley, going through his daily routine, as we all were. We had a funeral for him. We wrapped him and buried him, and we all picked out a nice big rock as a place marker and to mark his grave, because it had great meaning for all of us. And so I planted some forget-me-nots, and I thought that'd be appropriate, it'd be kind of sweet. And I don't know what happened, but spinach grew. Yeah, and I never could get flowers to grow there, and every year there'd be spinach. I should try again this spring to maybe make a real effort to cultivate something